Okay, so we'll just start the session over here. Thank you everyone for coming today and making it for our first ASEAN Reporters webinar for GRI in 2024. So I would just like to give everybody a warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists and guests for this webinar today. So today's webinar is titled Unlocking the Power of Sustainability Reporting, a Guide for Corporate Reporters. And so today's webinar is a space for sustainability, for the sustainability community, where we'll be unlocking the power of sustainability reporting and dissecting the challenges in sustainability reporting. So before we start the session, we would like to do a quick poll with everyone, with all our attendees today. So we'll take a minute over here while I start the poll, and everybody can just sort of like get on this just one moment. Yeah. Okay. So there are two questions. The first question being, with the recent developments in the sustainability reporting landscape, what is the biggest or most common difficulty encountered by you? Okay, great. So we have some entries coming in already. I can see that there's at least close to a quarter of you have already answered. Thank you so much for your answers. And the second question is, please indicate any additional challenges that are not mentioned above. So if you have any additional challenges that you have faced that is not mentioned above, do let us know as well. We would love to hear more from you as well on this. Okay, I'll just give you another minute while we wait for more participants to actually give us a little bit input into this poll. Okay, so we are just those who are joining us just now. We are doing a introduction poll for this ASEAN Reporters webinar. There are two questions. First question, with the recent developments in the sustainability reporting landscape, what is the biggest or most common difficulty encountered by you? Okay, and the second question, if you have any challenges, please do let us know. We would love to hear more from you as well on the challenges that you have faced as well. Or just take another minute while we have a little bit more participants just answering. Okay, so we're gonna stop the poll now. All right. Okay, so thank you everyone for your answers. We really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this poll. Okay. Just a moment while I just get my bearings here. Just a moment, yeah. Okay, so now I would like to introduce our distinguished speakers. So we have a couple of speakers joining us today. First, I would like to introduce Harold Powell, who is our Director of GRI Standards. He will be speaking a little bit more on navigating the reporting landscape and an update from the Global Reporting Initiative itself. And on the topic of our moderated with our moderated session later is the improving of the journey of sustainability reporting. So we have Mr. Henry Julius, who is a PhD student in political science, University of Melbourne, who will be actually presenting on his viewpoint. We also have Ms. Rachel Esther J., Director of the Corporate Governance and Finance Department, Securities and Exchange Commission, Philippines, presenting from a regulator's viewpoint. And we have Professor Lawrence Loh, Center for Governance and Sustainability, National University of Singapore, who will be presenting from an academic's perspective. And lastly, we have Mr. Rajesh Chabra, CSR Works International Director, presenting from a consultant's perspective. Sorry about that. Okay, so to moderate this session, we have Ms. Katrina, who is our Country Manager, Philippines of GRI, who will be actually moderating today's session itself. So without further ado, I will be handing over this to Ms. Katrina, who will host the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And good morning and good afternoon and maybe even good evening to you all. Once again, I'm Katrina Pilgahara, your host and moderator for today, and sending my greetings from a pleasant afternoon in the Philippines. I'm happy that it's not raining because then I'll be very nervous to be cut off because of, internet disruption. But anyway, thank you for choosing to spend your 1.5 hours today with us. As Vanessa mentioned, we have a stellar lineup of speakers today, and later on, I'm going to reintroduce them to you once again. But as a starter to share, we've been doing this event, if I'm not mistaken, since 2021. And the topics that we choose depend on what we think the reporters in the ASEAN need at the moment, and also, based on what's happening in the market. So you taking part on the polls that we also launched during these events really help us to navigate around the needs of our stakeholders. So thank you as well for that. So for this session, recognizing that sustainability reporting is not as a new of an idea anymore, particularly with the listed companies and special jurisdictions of where regulators proactively release sustainability reporting policies. We then wanted to focus on further unlocking the power of sustainability reporting by improving the journey itself, among others. So in the next slide, you will see how we're going to spend the next 1.5 hours. If you could see the next slide, please, to show the agenda. As we're waiting for it, first up, there would be, an overview of the reporting landscape through the GRI lens, and then followed by a knowledge sharing from various speakers' perspectives and a moderated discussion, and also a Q&A with the audience. So for the Q&A with the audience, we're going to collect the questions from you through the Q&A chat box. I think at this point, everyone is already familiar with how Zoom webinar works. So you just key in your questions via the Q&A chat box, and for that kind of like regular chat box, if you have any technical issues and whatnot, just message us there as well. Be reminded also to keep your mics and videos off, unless otherwise we request for you to activate it, maybe during the Q&A. All right, I guess without further ado, if you could go, I'm pleased to introduce our opening speaker, and very much so, because I just learned also today that, this speaker is also a fellow chemical engineer. So, and we brought in the big guns today as well. He is actually based in the Netherlands, and he will be sharing with us updates on GRI standards and be Harold Powell. He's our Director of Standards at GRI. So Harold, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Katrina. and for the warm welcome, and thank you all over the world. Indeed, I'm Harold Powels. I'm leading the revision of our entire standards program, and we have some slides, so I hope we can share them. Yes, there they are. So I want to guide you a little bit through the standards evolving landscape, or the reporting landscape, because as Katrina said, GRI is not new. So we pioneered from already now 27 years ago, basically because a multi-stakeholder initiative with investors, with workers representatives, with mediation institutes, with academics, with NGOs. They agreed 27 years ago to create. There was the need to have a common language which is transparent, which is in so way to be able to roll out that an organization can be transparent about the sustainability performance and their accountability for the impact on the world, so the world around them, on environment, on people, and even on economic aspects and governance aspects, etc. So standards, and since then also GRI helps any business in the world, irrespective of sector, size, geographic location, to disclose their impacts via a very strict and high quality metrics system. Why this? Providing very high insights for companies and the stakeholders. Why would you like to have this insights? Well, then you can be informed very well in your decision making and improve your environmental, your social, and for a lot of companies these days also, of course, your financial outcomes. And I will tell a little bit more today about that. Also give an update where we are and where we are with our cooperation with other standard setters and regulators, because our field will be evolving. Compared to financial reporting, we're still a very young sector. So that's, I think, important to know. So let's go to the next. So to date, it resulted in thousands of organizations all over the world reporting impacts. 85 more than 85 countries and regions in the world also have policies which refer and or require GRI. So in essence, we are a voluntary system, but by reference or by requirement, by governments, by contracts, the GRI standards have become more and more pseudo-regulatory day-to-day business. And it's always good to see. Thank you for you all that the adoption in Asia Pacific, but especially in the Asian region, with Singapore, with the Philippines, with Taiwan, and etc., is very high. So the uptake is very high, and that's of course what we want to keep high, because it's extremely important. Let's go to the next. So just from some of you will know, but just to remind again, so our modular system is an interconnected system built upon 3 pillars, and you have to use them as a combined holistic system to identify your most significant impacts with universal standards, and also to make the choice in which are your material topics. And if you've done that, to do that, and you use the sector standards, and then you find your likely material topics. If you identified your topics, then you have to report according to the requirements which are in the disclosures of the topic standards, which are over 30 standards now for many various topics, for environment, for governance, economics, and for labor aspects. Let's go to the next. So how does this work? I think in acronyms you often hear like ISSB and GSSB. ISSB is the board for the financial disclosures, financial materiality disclosures, investor focused. The GSSB is the multi-stakeholder board, the board who is overseeing the development of the global sustainable standards, for multi-stakeholder impact reporting, which is based on double materiality. So this GSSB, our GSSB, on the leadership of Carol Adams, works on the development of the GRI standards, of course, implementation of the standards, translation. So we translate all the standards in 10 languages of very high quality. Standard interpretations, also mappings compared to other organizations, to regulators. And at this moment, we also have a consultation ongoing for our taxonomy, our XBRL. So for those of you who are interested, have a look at our website, and please, we are welcoming your comments. We cooperate with other standard setting bodies, of course, like the ISSB, like the IASB, so the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, the IPSASB, International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, but also with regulators, with EFRAG, but also with regulators all over the world, to ensure we have a consistent, interoperable, manageable system for organizations. So one of the questions earlier today was, well, there are too many standards and reporting standards or plastic soup. Well, it's the overview of our entire system is better than ever before, but it's evolving. So that's good to keep understanding. Let's go to the next. So one back, please. Yeah. So if we look at the topic standards, just to give you an overview. So as I said, we are covering everything from environment to labor to economics. At this moment, we have 24 standards under revision of being worked on. The 101 on biodiversity we released earlier this year, so it will be implemented in 26. So you have time to do work on pilots and learn about it. Currently, we're working on the set you will see under the pillar 2026. So in 2025, sorry, and 2025, I expect that we are able to publish this entire blue list from climate change, energy, employment, remuneration, diversity and equal opportunities, training, education, work in Paris and caregivers, and non-discrimination. We are focusing on publishing them all next year. And then the other bold ones we are working on, these will either be published end of 2025, but I expect actually 2026. And then by 2026, 27, we will work on new topics, but also on revision of the lighter ones here, from materials and waste circularity up to tax and OHS. So again, this is a fully comprehensive, and we will keep reviewing these standards and revising them up to the requests of the market. So from you, from the users. Let's go to the next. So for topics, we released by now 4 new sector standards. So from oil and gas, coal, agriculture, and mining. We're working on the textile and apparel. We're working on the financial ones, banking, insurance, asset management, and financial services. And we will continue working on the next most critical sectors on a sequence, which you see here. So our GSSB identified these different groups in priority. So group 1 was the highest priority to have sector guidance on and sector standards on, and group 2 will be the second. This could change based on the feedback we get from stakeholders. Let's go to the next. So maybe also a little bit looking up front, so looking to the future. So GRI was, is, and will always be the organization to report material impacts on the economy, environment, and on people, and how you manage these impacts. That was our mission, and it's still our mission. We work very closely with others like IFRS and the ISSB standards, IFRS S1 and S2. And it's extremely important these days. We get a lot of questions about it, so that's why I put it on here. So the IFRS standards enable organizations from an investor perspective to disclose information about your sustainable related risk and opportunities. This is very important to remember. This is extremely important. You both need your impact reporting and your risks and opportunities reporting, because these risks and opportunities, of course, also have an impact on the financial position of the organization. But these risks and opportunities, these arise from any organization's impacts, almost 100%. That's why we say, and that's why we together with nowadays with IFRS, ISB say that If you use the combination of GRI and IFRS globally, then you have a comprehensive overview of your organization, of any organization, sustainable related impacts, risk and opportunities. Some people call it IRO. And this will, of course, in this case, they complement each other. We are working very close. We just announced last week the next chapter in our MOU to go even further on aligning and identifying alignment between us. So yes, we can go to the next, because I'm looking at time. So again, I'm sure these slides can be shared. So why it's important to start with impact, I already said it. These impacts from an organization or impacts on the outer world, in many cases, in the short or long term, midterm, always translate into risks and opportunities. There are only very few cases where it's not. More and more, and basically a lot of people in the world all agree to this. Also, regulators ask for having both this impact perspective and this risk and opportunity perspective. So this is the next years, us as GRI, together with other players in the global space, will work together with the standard setters, with the regulators, but also with the methodologic institutions like TNFD for the Task Force for Nature Financial Disclosures, also with, for instance, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, but also with target setting organizations like SBTI and SBTN, to make sure we have a system which is an ecosystem which is comprehensive and workable and easy to use by organizations all over the world. And we will push and we will keep pushing and talking to regulators all over the world to embrace this, because of course we work very closely with the European Commission. But if basically European Commission embraced fully the GRI principles and the GRI standards from the impact perspective, that's good. But in the end, we want that all regulators, of course, also have comparable regulatory standards based on the combination of GRI and ISSB and the methodologies underneath it. This will make life easier for many, many organizations in the world, for reporters, for auditors, for basically everybody who's in this space. Let's go to the next. I basically said this. So we have already 2 months after IFRS started in 2022, we already had our MOU with them. Since then, we work together. People always ask, what are you doing? Well, we step by step, we are working on this interoperability and this collaboration that basically you can have a combination of the disclosures of GRI and ISSB together to have perfect and quality reporting, because that's extremely important. And this reporting and this metrics will be used also by benchmarkers, by data organizations, data exchange organizations like for CDP, but also many software organizations, to ensure that this is interchangeable. And this is the world we are going towards. Next one. Again, I said one example about our collaboration with regulators. I foresee this will grow and grow also between the regulators, because nobody has advantage of having very different regulatory systems. More and more in the world, with talking to regulators, but also with companies and stakeholders, we see this question on not only financial materiality, but a combination of financial and impact materiality. And that's why we work very close together, as I said, not only with regulators, but also with ISSB to roll this out in the world. And the Innovation Lab is, of course, one example where we work together on also rolling it out and have coordinated actions to make sure reporters can learn, SMEs can learn, can come back with their questions, so we can evolve and we can improve the system. Let's go to the next. So just to give a small example as a final one, the previous slide. Yes, maybe previous slide. Yeah, a small example how this ecosystem looks like, and this is of course never always complete, but you have the standards, the voluntary standard systems like ISSB and GRI in the third row, and you have regulatory standards like AFRAC, but you also have SEC, and of course all in the world, in Japan, in Singapore, in the Philippines, everywhere we have of course regulatory standards and documents which we would like to see being fully in line with the global reporting standards agreements. The international frameworks, they will always be there. There will even be more, because you need them systematically to find your to do your leap analysis for TNFD, for instance, but also to do your carbon accounting according to the greenhouse gas protocol. What the beautiful thing is that both us, GRI and ISSB, we work very closely. We have cooperations with these organizations for a long time, and this will come closer together, as we already seen. This is only a good thing, which makes it easier for reporters from an overview of what is coming towards you. So I think this is this is how I wanted to set the scene for today. And let's go back to you, Katrina.
Thank you very much, Harold. Thank you for setting up the stage. And we're seeing a lot of interest already from the audience asking if they can have the materials for today. Of course, you will receive the materials for today's session, even also the recording in no time. As you can see from Harold's presentation, clearly, the sustainability reporting world continues to grow and evolve. So that's why GRI, makes sure that to support our stakeholders by mounting these events. So let's now move forward to the knowledge sharing segment. As you can see here, we have other 4 speakers, and they're coming from the regulatory body, from the academic institution, and also the consulting world. So let me introduce them right before the speak, if that's okay. So let's see. So first to share is his perspective would be Professor Lawrence Law. He is the director of the Center for Governance and Sustainability of the National University of Singapore's Business School. Actually, we've worked with Professor Law's team in the past years, on some events and also white paper. And I am quite excited to hear from his perspective on the state of ASEAN, or I think the Asia Pacific, when it comes to sustainability reporting. So Professor Law, please take on the virtual stage.
Thank you, Katrina. Let me share screen. Just to make sure everyone can see the screen.
Yes, confirming, Professor Law.
Okay, good. Thank you, moderator. After a very good session by Harold, I'm very, very pleased to actually present to you the state of practices in Asia Pacific. And of course, Katrina has mentioned, I come from the National University of Singapore. In fact, I have made full disclosure on my virtual screen behind me. NUS logo is there. So I'm very, very happy to collaborate over the many years with GRI ASEAN, and in particular, participating in many of the events. What I'm going to do in the next few minutes or so is actually to go straight, cut to the chase and present to you what is actually the state of play in listed companies in Asia Pacific. So what I will do is actually to present some of the key findings in the most recent study that my research center, CGS, has done with PwC on top listed companies, the bigger one across 14 jurisdictions in the Asia Pacific. You can see the names of this jurisdiction on the slides. And of course, my slides are also available through the organizer. So you can freely focus on looking and listening. And what we have covered in this is actually the vanguard of each jurisdiction, meaning the advanced company. And in total, we have 700 companies across 11 industries. And we do this study every year so as to track the baseline as well as the benchmark for much of the concerns in the sustainability reporting space. And our framework that we have used to gauge the level of disclosure, in fact, the level of practices, are organized along 5 components. And I think that this is basically some of the key concerns by companies. And I think this also met very well to some of the most established standards, in particular the GRI. We have materiality stakeholder, we have targets, we have climate change, governance, and of course, building trust or assurance. These are the 5 areas that we look at in particular. And you can see on the right side, some of the indicators just to illustrate what are the things that my team actually analyze in each of the company. Let me go straight to the broad finding first. The overall finding in terms of, say, materiality and stakeholder engagement. The starting is always good news. And I think that this probably GRI has spearheaded much of this current adoption of the concept of materiality. Almost 100% is, in fact, 94% in terms of stakeholder engagement. It's also quite mature. And in terms of targets, we are very, very happy that many companies, the vanguard of which jurisdiction, that is the leading companies, have done the targets. But having said that, if you zoom down, if you actually focus on net zero targets, this is where at this point in time, even the largest company find it challenging to actually go into net zero targets. In fact, in aggregate, we have barely half, about half, just over half of leading companies, not all listed companies, but the top leading companies having net zero targets. And if you actually map in some of the framework, the SBTI methodology or process, it went slightly down. So I think this is where companies will need to catch up on. And in terms of some other specific items, I'd like to highlight perhaps, if I can use my pointer, if you look at Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission of carbon, quite a lot of companies have done that. But when it comes to Scope 3, which is indirect emission across the entire value chain, only about half of companies, the leading companies have actually gone into this. So I think this is something where we need to have some attention, maybe regulation, policy, emphasis. Now, let's look at the governance itself. Most companies, the leading companies, have actually stipulated the responsibilities of the board. But when it comes to training, maybe 1/3 disclose that board or senior management goes for training. And I think this, I don't know whether this is good news or bad news, but to me it's good news. It means more business for me as an educator. But I think maybe they should attend more GRI events so they can up their training. Okay, then the other one that's very, very interesting is external assurance beyond just training. You can see now, even with the top leading companies, about half have external assurance, and we are talking about any kind of assurance, even limited assurance, not only just the more advanced reasonable assurance. So this is probably another area of improvement. Okay, now in terms of standards, and I think this is actually very consistent with what Harold has presented. Among the leading companies, the top 50 companies in each jurisdiction, of course, we have some illustrative frameworks and standards. By far, GRI is the lead horse, and this is actually done last year. So I think ISSB from IFRS have not come into play. You can see overall, the current state is among the leading companies in Asia Pacific. It's about 81%. I think it's very good news. It's even higher than SDG, which is something easier. And of course, I think declining, the integrated reporting is declining quite fast. I think it's barely 20% now. So you can see the relative weight, the percentages of each jurisdiction here. And you can see, for example, in terms of GRI, among the leading companies, Philippines and South Korea do very well, or even Taiwan as well. Okay, so what I have done over the many years is looking at corporate sustainability. So I just want to highlight a very important part of this reporting, and I hope maybe in the panel we can go into it. It's more than just actually alignment with standards, producing all the statistics. I think very importantly, just in the media story, which I took part in the commenting, I think it's very important that sustainable reporting is about telling a story. It's actually a storybook that go hand in hand with the annual report. And I think very, very importantly, the board must actually drive the reporting, even if they are directors, they need to drive the reporting. And lastly, I think before I end, I'd like to emphasize, in fact, this is something I've been doing just recently. If you look at ESG, very importantly, something is missing, which is the fundamental initiator. And I'm very happy that GRI has actually a separate pillar on this, which is economics. So maybe the full framing for ESG should be called EESG rather than just ESG. And I think this is totally consistent with the GRI standards. And so going forward, I fully endorse double materiality. In fact, I think it's more superior than single materiality, particularly financial materiality. So I'm very happy that GRI has taken the lead, and even the EU has adopted the GRI conceptualization. So with that, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Professor Law. I can't help but agree when it comes to ESG, the insertion of another E there, definitely involving the economic part, because then if we have the ESG, then it's already aligned with all of the sustainability dimensions. So thank you for that. And let's bring in to a deeper discussion later on when it comes to the enhancement of sustainability disclosures. I have here actually a couple of questions already, but we'll reserve that during the Q&A. For now, let me welcome Director Rachel of the Securities and Exchange Commission in the Philippines. And, to our audience who are coming from a country, I think we have a lot of our audience who are coming from the Philippines. If you've been following GRI in the Philippines throughout the years, you would know how closely we've been working with SEC. And suffice to say that Director beyond thrilled to welcome Director Rachel to the virtual stage. So the mic is yours, Direct.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, GRI, for inviting the SEC Philippines to be part of your ASEAN reporters webinar. And I hope what I will be sharing this afternoon would also be very enlightening as well. And I would like to apologize in advance. I did not prepare a slide for today's session because I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to share with you how SEC as a regulator was also one of how we push forward the requirement of having a sustainability report. So just quickly, I'd like to share with everyone is that we initially started to have a task force created sometime in 2017. And the idea for this one is really to increase, because there was an increasing attention given to sustainability or on the economic environmental